Well, welcome to another episode of Rim Shots with Sean right here on the Rock Rage Radio Network. And I'm here with a new friend, Mr. Greg Armstrong. We're here to talk about Innovibrations. I didn't ask you, you're located where, Greg?
I'm in Minneapolis,
Ha!
Minnesota.
So I have a connection. My father's family was actually from Minneapolis.
No
And
way.
then, yep, and then ended up moving to Saskatchewan and then British Columbia. So I've got great, rich history there. It's one of my favorite places to visit.
Okay. Well, it's cold today, man. It's like, I don't know, 5 below, 10 below. It's
Yep.
cold.
Well, hey, I'm Canadian, so I'm used to that. But
Yeah, right. Right.
so tell us about what you're up to. When Gina sent me a note, she said you got to talk to Greg, and I mean, I always, my door's always open to Gina. So tell me, what it is you're doing.
Awesome. Innovibrations does a lot of projects, a lot of different sounding projects. I like to incorporate people I've never worked with before. Um, it's a studio, it's a band, it's a record label, it's a multiple of things. I've been a jingle writer for 30 some years. That's kind of my background. I'm a keyboard player. I've been playing live since I was 18. I'm 58. Basically, been a musician my whole life. But the last few years, actually, since COVID, I started not only doing covers, but doing some original songs, incorporating some monster players. I've used Todd Zuckerman. You're a drummer, so you know some of these people.
Yep.
So I've used Todd on a bunch of tracks, and on this latest one, I've used Petar Jancic, who plays with Corey Wong, and so I like to use people that I don't necessarily know all that well, but I put a call out to, and they know me, and that's how it built. And we all kind of get to work over the internet together. We don't do any of these in the studio together, other than vocals. Sometimes I'll get a vocalist in it and produce a vocalist locally.
So people don't understand sometimes how these projects work. So you mentioned Todd. I've interviewed him on my podcast. Styx was here in Halifax last May. We found out in
Mhm.
October he was coming, and he wanted to do a master class. So from October until about a week
Yeah.
before their concert in May, we worked on that to put that together and get him there. And I believe he had 35 people. That was it. Was I mean that was the max he could take. And he did that
Yep.
the day after the show. What's it like to work with somebody like Todd and put that together? And I know he's a pro. I know he probably sends you things pretty quickly. But how does that all come about?
He's absolute consummate pro. Yeah, he works harder than anybody I know, man. He does those master classes all the time when he's on the road with Sticks, and generally the day after, or the day before, or the day of
Yeah.
the show. He's a busy man, but he has a studio at home. And also during COVID, he started doing a lot of projects at home. And I reached out to him just to do a project that was a favor for a theater that we were um, trying to help stay alive during COVID. And so I did a video of, of a song. We did a Journey song. We did Open Arms. So I had Todd on that, and I had a former singer from The Storm. His name is Kevin Chalfant. That he sounds a lot like Steve Perry. So we did that with Todd as a benefit, and we just had a great time working together. And since then, we've done 10 projects together, probably. Some of them are covers like that. Some of them are all over the map musically. He didn't play on this last track that I had because he's actually, I'm finally going to take a little vacation in December, is what he told me. So I had a different drummer on this last one, but he's back at it now, and he actually just cut a track for me last week.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's great. You mentioned Open Arms. Obviously, he made the announcement there last week that he's back with Sonner, which was, his hero,
Yeah.
Steve Smith, which we know, and that's pretty cool. Little something I can't say on here, but I maybe saw a bit of a foreshadowing of that back last year, so that was interesting. You mentioned you were a jingle
Yeah.
writer, and that's your background.
Yeah.
And I did a course in April, and the course was about how to earn a living in the music business, doing other things just besides playing. You would be the perfect example. If you're still playing and you're still doing stuff, well, people have it in their head they just have to perform. And there's great careers beyond that. I'd love you to maybe elaborate that a little bit, because if you're in that business 32 some odd years, you obviously, had some success at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm lucky that I've been able to do that, but you make your own luck too,
Yeah.
and I've always, I don't know if it was instilled with me as a youngster, but I've always had a plan B. I've always been a live musician, and since I was 18, and enjoyed doing that. But I got to have a backup. And I got hired by another jingle company in 1992 to write jingles, and I learned a lot doing that. And I started my own company in 1994. After that one kind of fizzled out. So then Creative Radio started in 1994. And so, yeah, I've been able to make a living playing live music and then being a jingle writer. Our forte is small and medium markets.
Yep.
So mom and pop kind of situations where radio stations got to be owned by conglomerates. I assume it's the same way up in Canada.
Yep.
But when I first started 32 years ago, it was a lot of small mom and pop radio stations, and so we made our inroads with those radio stations and those salespeople. And there's still a lot of those stations left, but mostly in small and medium markets that the conglomerate did not want. So that's generally who we deal with. And yeah, like I said, I was lucky to be in this business and start when I did and make those relationships when I did. Now everybody has a studio in their house, or not everybody, but a lot of people have studios in their home. So making jingles isn't quite what it used to be when I first started doing it. I don't know if we're at all close to the same age, but we were doing tape back then. So we were cutting tape and sending out reels in the early days of doing jingles. So yeah.
It's funny because that business, and I mean the term earworm wasn't prevalent, but there's a local jingle that was written up here for a company called Casino Taxi, and everybody where I live, they know the number 429-6666 because that's how it ends, and it was just drilled in your head. And
Yep.
Must have been pretty cool to be.
Earworm.
I'm sure you had some situations where you became a part of a brand with something that you put together.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of times I don't even know. I basically do them in the U.S. I think we've done some in Canada. Sorry, I lost my. But we do them all over the country. So a lot of times I don't know how they affect in their different parts of the country. Because I don't hear them. But locally, when I hear those, it's like, oh, you did that one. So, oh, yeah, I did that one. There's some that are just well played. If I had a nickel for every time some of these jingles played, that'd be nice. But anyway, we sell them as buyouts. The big jingle companies back in the day, anyway, in the 70s and 80s, those were like ASCAP and BMI. They were paid a royalty rate when those got played. My jingles are our buyout, so they get to own them forever.
I've become friends with a gal by the name of Ingrid Fashing, who she was very good friends with the late great Hal Blaine, who was probably one of the most recorded drummers ever. And she'll share some of his contracts, and man, they would go in, and some of the iconic records that he recorded on, he was getting paid like $215 a day. You know what I mean? Like, it was crazy.
I've seen some of those contracts. I've seen some of those that Carol Kay played on, and yeah, some of those contracts. They're amazing. They did it all day long, though.
Yeah, they're in there a lot. Yeah, they sit around and wait for the call to come. Absolutely. So tell me about Innovibrations. So you said it's a record company. It's a production house. It's I guess, what's your sweet spot if you're looking to take somebody on? What would you be looking for?
It's the artist, it's the song, it's putting it all together. I'm looking for something. I've worked with a lot of people all over the last 30 years. Some of them rock stars, some of them not. Some of them just local artists. And the biggest thing to me is you need to have some sort of an ego to be in this business,
Yep.
but you got to be on. Your ego has to be when you walk through the door. You're just another one of, just somebody else, man. We're all in this together. So I mean, I, I I've always been lucky enough to read people pretty well when I've produced or be involved with folks, and that we all see eye to eye on that. And Todd's another one like that. He's a monster, but
Yeah.
there's no ego there. There's just, I mean, there is an ego because you're on stage, but he's I like working with folks like that. That's
Well, my dealings with Todd, I would say confidence, confidence. Like obviously he walks tall, right? And you get that, but I mean, he had one of the best lines. And I apologize, there's some bells going up, but when I interviewed him, and he said, too many drummers try to pound the drums through the floor as opposed to letting the drums kind of resonate up in the air. And I was just like, what a profound statement to make, because that was probably the first 10 years of my career, right?
right, right. Oh yeah. As me as a keyboard player, I play as fast as I can. Play the fastest solo, and whatever, play as many notes as possible. And as time has passed, I'm playing less and less all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the space in between the notes, right? And that's the same with drumming too. It's a space in between the notes. So
Well, it's funny. I mean, I went back and I found some video of me playing from high school. I don't even know if I can play some of that, but it just sounded so. There was a video that was on YouTube a couple of years ago of a church drummer that he was like a metal guy, and all he was doing was fill. I was like, man, that sounds eerily similar to my high school band. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Just not paying
yeah. Well,
attention to
there's a
that
time
around
and
you.
there's time and a place for it, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, to listen to it nonstop gets old pretty fast.
Yes,
So,
sir. So,
and
so
that's not ego. That's just sometimes that's just youth. Like you said, we did that. When it's youth, and the longer you get to play, the more that settles down.
well, and that joke that I can't remember what movie it was in, but talking about the two bulls up on the hill, and the old bull says, why run down there when we can walk down slow? The punchline. And it's kind of like it's never so prevalent as being a musician when you're gaining experience and getting older, right? Because you
Yep.
want to do everything fast, and you don't take enough time to kind of smell the roses and see what's going on, and you don't listen to people that want to tell you should do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Too
That's
funny.
right. Yep. That's the
So.
way of the world, isn't it?
So in terms of what you've been able to do in your career, I mean, 92, man, that's I I can remember the first part of my music career was 3 years away from being over. I mean, I quit in 95 out of frustration, got back in 2000. You've been able to, I guess, earn a good living, and what have you with regard to what you've been doing?
I have. I started out in cover bands in the 80s, like most people, and played in cover bands until 92. And then I got with a 60s teen idol named Bobby V.
Yep.
And I went all around the world with him. I went everywhere. Toured Europe many times. And we went to Malaysia once for New Year's Eve. But I got to meet a bunch of 60s rock stars. I played on stage with Paul McCartney,
Oh,
with Bobby back then. Paul McCartney owns all the publishing rights to Buddy Holly's music. He learned that lesson from Michael Jackson, so he bought all Buddy Holly's publishing, and so he threw. I don't think he still does this, but he used to throw a party every year around Buddy Holly's music,
wow.
and Bobby kind of got his start when the night Buddy Holly died. Uh, Bobby B filled in for him at the Moorhead Armory. So this is 1959, and I joined Bob in 1990. So many years after that, but 92, sorry. And I stayed with him until 99, and then I wanted to stay home a little more, and I got an original band around Minneapolis that we toured about the 5-state area for another 7-8 years. Seven years was my 7-year itch, so I'd stay in a band for 7 years. And so 7 years I stayed with GB Layton, and then I adopted a girl from China. So I was married, and I am married, still married, and we adopted our daughter from China, and I really wanted to stay home and not be away in hotels and stuff as much as I was. So uh, I started a band called the Fabulous Armadillos, and Fabulous Armadillos are still playing. So my 7 year itch passed. So this is our 19th year. And
Well, and it's funny from the world of Facebook is listening. I read something this morning on about Buddy Holly about how he did more in his lifetime at 22 years of age, and they mentioned the fact that he worked really hard to get the rights to his music back from his record label. So that's a fascinating story. Um,
it is.
we and I know this business now. People's attention spans are brutally low. So I like to keep things around the 15-minute mark, and we're creeping up on that. So if my folks want to find out how do they get a hold of you to maybe work on a project, find out what you're doing, make contact with you to maybe pitch something, where do they get a hold of you, Greg?
The easiest way is Innovibrations at Linktree, but on Facebook you can find it under Innovibrations, Innovibrations, and on YouTube, Innovibrations as well. I don't have a website, but those are the two places to reach out to me.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you for doing this. And like I say, Gina always hooks me up with interesting people that I wind up having. It's not a one and done. I usually stay in contact with the people, so I'd love to do that with you if you're so inclined.
I'd love to. Yeah, it's fun to talk to you. Do you have a drum shop too? Like you said, you had Todd play. Do you have a drum shop as well?
So the local, it's kind of a funny story. The local chain or the Canadian chain is called Long and McQuaid, and the one in Dartmouth wanted to hold one, and I'm actually I'm endorsed by Mapex. So
Okay.
Mapex gave me the heads up that Todd wanted to do it because my rep's friends with the Pearl rep, but then he was with Pearl at the time. So I just gave them a hand doing it. But I do tracks and stuff too. I'm set up to do that. I do all that stuff. Play live. I have a couple bands. I rep an artist up here by the name of Michelle Ryder, who I should send you some of her stuff. I think you would quite like it. Yeah, so I don't have a shop per se, but I have access to that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, please stay in touch. You have my email through Gina too, I believe. So
I will. Yeah, we will definitely. What I'll do is, as soon as this is done, my friend, she'll get a copy. You'll get a copy, and we'll hook it up.
Great. All right, Sean. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Ed. We'll back at you soon.